Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I want to address this question that I got in my last eBay video. And it's basically around the fact that it looks like somebody wants to open up a vintage store. They want to specialize in toys and clothing. It says, I would be interested to know, what do you think about the retail side of things? If you could do a video on the actual store, what kind of profits, time, and what kind of overhead? But I'm gonna dive into this, and hopefully we can take a little bit of the fear and the unknown aspects out of this, and maybe it'll help you. Hopefully, it helps you. Why would I listen to you to open up a vintage store? I opened up a vintage store about 10 years ago, and that vintage store is called BC Modern. We were mentioned in Apartment Therapy. We've been mentioned in Domino Magazine, Best Restored Furniture in Milwaukee, Best Vintage Store in Milwaukee. So we're doing something right over here at BC Modern. Now, my store is only open 2 days a month. We spend 30 days curating the space and we sell as much as we can in 2 days. And then I start the process all over again. In that 2 day time period, I see between 500 and 700 people in that amount of time. So I know a little bit about marketing. I know a little bit about sourcing. I know a little bit about staging. I know a little bit about everything that it takes to actually make sure that you're going to have a successful vintage store. What I hope to do with this video is to give you some kind of insights, coming from somebody that's actually doing this. And if this is something that you're aspiring to do, or maybe you already have a vintage store, maybe some of these things will help you to look at things a lot differently. And hopefully that will improve what you have going, or maybe get the ball rolling so that you can get going in the right direction to get your store opened up. Now, the comment that came in on a video, the first thing they said is, can you discuss profits? Now, that's something that I don't really like to discuss. It's not something that I'm going to put out there very openly about my brick and mortar store. Now, we're talking eBay. That's something I can throw out there. That's something I do feel open sharing with the world. Everything that I talk about is very proprietary to my business. It's very proprietary to how I built my success. So the things that I share, I have to keep some of it for myself. So I'm not going to dive into profits for my personal business. What I will tell you, or what I will advise you of, are the things that you need to understand that are going to affect how you're going to make profit. There's things that are going to affect how you make profit. One being location. That's a huge factor in, how you're going to make profit. Are you in a high traffic location? Are you in a location that people can even access you? Are you in a location that you can afford so that it's not taking away from your profits, right? So that's one piece that's going to affect how you make profit. Inventory control and customer demand. These are two other factors that will help decide how your profit is going to really plan out for you. Because if you can't get inventory, or if you get too much inventory and you don't got customers, or you got too many customers and you don't have enough inventory, you can see how those two things being imbalanced can cause you to not make profit. These are three things that I would personally consider when you start to talk the whole profit loss type conversation. Now, there are things that you can do, and these are my tips to help you to start making profit from day one if you're going to open up a vintage store. Learn to find and offer unique items, whatever it is that you're selling, whatever field that you decide to go in. You selling toys, you selling clothes, you selling furniture, whatever it is that you're selling, find unique stuff. My catchphrase in my store is, where are you going to find another one? Literally, I use it. I created a hashtag for it, where are you going to find another one? Because to me, in my mind, if I ain't seen one in 20 years and I can get it in my store, there's a good chance that the person coming through my door has not ever seen that piece, or they haven't seen it in a very long time. So my whole motto is built on finding items that most people won't have in their store. So I don't care how many vintage stores are blocks away from me if they don't have the same thing that I have. Learn to build a good, loyal customer base. I built my customer base through social media, through Instagram, through Facebook, through, obviously YouTube, TikTok. I communicate with my followers. I engage with my followers. That is how you build a good, loyal customer base. You build a loyal customer base. That is huge. That's huge. I always say that, and I'm not new. This isn't my saying, but I heard Gary Vee say it one time, and he's like, the follower account, the followers that you got in your phone, that follower list, that's like mobile real estate. You can literally take that anywhere that you go, and you can set up shop. So build a loyal customer base that will help you to start to make profit immediately. Here's my last tip on how to try to make some profit. Come up with like strategic pricing. What I learned very early on is that there are a certain group of people that are comfortable paying $100, $200, 250, $500, 500, 750, 750, 1,000, 1,500, 1,000 to 1,500. Like you see where I'm going with this? Like you start to come up with strategic pricing based on the stuff that you bring in. And if you start to understand what people's price points are, you'll start to buy things that fit into those price points. You'll sell more of those things because that is your customer base that's coming through the door and you just keep feeding them. And every so often, you maybe bring in something else different and you keep pushing that envelope a little higher until you get to the price points that feel comfortable for you. Strategic pricing. It's my 2 cents. Now, the time that goes into this. I just had somebody actually, a local dealer, hit me up yesterday, and they was talking to me about the time that they're putting into it, and it just doesn't feel fun anymore. This is not one of them things that you're gonna be like, uh, I'll work when I feel like it. You can take that approach. You can definitely take that approach. But if you're trying to kick butt, like I would not take that approach. I work at my business every single day. My wife works at our business every single day. You want to get better every day. You're a small business owner. There is something to do all the time. You're gonna work, just so you know. You're probably gonna work more than you did for your 9 to 5 in corporate America. But the point is you're trying to find something that brings some kind of balance or some kind of joy to your life. So I would always say if you are planning on opening up a vintage store or any store of any kind, learn find the things that you are very passionate about and open up your store around those things. But try extremely hard to also find people who are also passionate about the same things that you are, so that when you open up this store, they'll come buy those things from you. One of your hardest things to manage will be your time. And I just got to be honest with you. That's I don't know if many people are going to say that, but that is one of the hardest things you have to manage. Next to your money, obviously, is your time. As small business owners, there is going to be always something for us to do. My tip to learn to manage your time is to schedule things, schedule your life. Like literally, I schedule 2 hours, 3 hour increments to do certain things for my company. And I do this every single day until it became second nature. And even once it became second nature, I just plug and play the different things that I'm going to do in those 2, 3 hours. But I'm scheduling my time to make sure that my day stays structured so that I do get things accomplished, so that my company keeps growing and my store keeps thriving. Because these are the things that you need to pay attention to when you want to open up a vintage store. Now, you mentioned overhead. That's the that's the thing you can't really get away from. Like even if you're reselling online, let's be honest, and this is something that I realized a long time ago that even paying fees on these platforms, whether it's eBay, Etsy, Poshmark, whatnot, even whatnot at 10%, this is the cost of doing business. It's no different than if you're paying rent. I had the confidence to leave eBay 10 years ago because the amount that I was paying for fees to be a high six-figure reseller on eBay was the equivalent to paying a rent or a lease in my own building. So that's how I took the jump. Is I looked and I'm like, man, I'm paying thousands of dollars in eBay fees. I can afford to pay rent. Rent is just a portion of your overhead. You got utilities, and that can be huge. Utilities can be one of those things that will make or break your profit margins on a monthly basis. If you get into a building that's not very efficient, these are costs that will start to add up and eat at your profit, and you got to pay attention to that kind of stuff. So just thinking about getting a space, the lease, the rent amount is just one portion of it. You got utilities. Insurance. You better get some insurance. You got to have some insurance. You need internet. I don't know what else you're going to need for your space. I know what, there are costs that I have, window washing. That's one thing that I have done. I get my windows cleaned. That's $40 a month. It doesn't seem like much, but that adds up. Snow removal. You gotta get that done. Like that's a cost for myself. $55 every time it snows. Now, if it snows more than one time in a day, these are you get what I'm going with this. There are overhead costs associated with getting a storefront. Your goal is to obviously keep those costs down, right? If you've ever heard the saying, scared money don't make no money, that is so true. There are times that you're going to have to jump out on faith and just try to make it happen because you're starting from zero. Starting from zero, but what did you need to make sure is that the startup costs and your monthly costs stay as small as possible. It's going to cost you something. Don't try to do this stuff for free. Don't. Nothing's free. It's going to cost you in the end. And the sooner you can get on your own 2 feet without having to worry about some kind of hookup or, my baby mama or my cousin got this spot and they're going to give it to me for the low. Every hookup ain't really a hookup. I'm just saying. Here's one of those things that most people won't talk about or don't talk about. When you talk about overhead costs, you better come up with the cost for marketing. Don't open up a business. Don't open up a store. Don't start a business and think that you're going to get all these clients and all these customers by going viral on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Don't think that. Like, take that thought out of your head. What you should actually think is, what am I willing to spend on a monthly basis to market my business? Because the days of, organic, free reach is pretty much over. Like, that's just like that's coming from the social media people. That's coming from somebody that actually runs a business and uses these platforms to get people to know that I exist. You got to come up with some kind of marketing budget. Spend some money on getting people. It's called customer acquisition costs. It's the nature of doing business. What you're trying to do again is try to keep that dollar amount down as low as possible, but go into this situation knowing that you should be spending some money on marketing. For myself, I spend a couple $100 a month on marketing. Every single event, I spend several $100s on one event for 2 days. You're going to spend money on marketing. That's going to be part of your overhead. So many people are ashamed to start small. Don't be ashamed to start small. Start as small as you possibly can on a budget that works best for you. When I started my company, BC Modern, I had just had a failed company. We owned a pawn shop. It was extremely humbling to go from 4,800 square foot pawn shop all the way down to like less than 700 square foot storefront. It cost me $550 a month. The reason I started with that space is because I had an unproven concept. I had an idea in my head, but it was an unproven concept. I hadn't made a penny doing this concept. I knew from my previous business that paying $2,500 a month was not the direction I wanted to go if I was going to have a store. I knew that having a pawn shop that was open 6 days a week did not bring me enjoyment. So I knew I had to do something that would bring me enjoyment. So my original concept was, I'm going to take this small little storefront. I'm going to fill it full of the things that I personally like. It cost me $550 a month. I still have my 2 employees, so I let them guys do eBay in the basement. And we rocked that space out. We rocked that space out for like 7, 8 months before I realized that the concept was starting to work. I'm allowing the business to grow organically. I'm not forcing it. I'm not pushing it. Once I saw that the money was coming in, the concept was catching on, eBay was working from the basement, we were selling out of the upstairs. Now I'm like, okay, let's go to a bigger space. Let's look at something that's in a better location. So then I started to look around the area and I've settled on Walker's Point. Walker's Point was a very hot area. It's still a pretty hot area in Milwaukee, but I settled on Walker's Point. And I looked around there to try to find a space, and everything in the heart of the area was pretty expensive. So I got right on the outskirts. So it's like 2 blocks away from the real heart of everything that was happening. And I was able to find something for a decent rate. Now, mind you, it was double. Actually, it was triple the amount that I was paying before, but now I knew the business could sustain it. I also knew I had a proven concept that was working for me for the past couple months. I did that for 2 or 3 years. We opened up a second location. COVID hits. I changed the model again. I tightened it up a little bit more, and we go to our once a month concept. But now I'm at the point where I'm like, you know what? I want to buy a building because I can't keep paying $3,000-4,000 a month because that is eating up my profits. Remember that? That first one that's going to dictate how much money you're going to make is how much are you spending on just being able to make the money in that space. So I needed to buy a building, and that's what I did. Now, this is not something that happens overnight. These are not things that happen overnight. And that's why I'm telling you this story. This is what I just told you was a 10-year long process to get to where I'm at right now in business. And I had already did 10 years prior to that before I even tried to even come up with this or before I even tried to do this concept. So it takes time, but don't be scared to take the baby steps. You have to start to take steps, period. Like that's literally what it comes down to is so many people just think about ideas and they come up with concepts and they run them past their friends and they talk to their mate about it and they just don't do anything about it. Do something. Like just got to do something. Like that's literally what it comes down to is every day I get up and I do something to better my business. And that's what it calls for when you are a small business owner. These are the things you got to think about. It's a daily grind. It really is. And I hope that everybody enjoyed the video. Please take some time, if you could, and give me some of the pros and cons that you could see with owning a store. If you've ever owned a store, if you got some questions about some of the pros and cons of owning a vintage store, drop them in the comments. If you got any questions about, my process as far as what it is that we do with BC Modern, drop them in the comments too. I want to also invite you to leave comments or questions for future episodes that you want me to cover, things that you want my take on. If I provided any kind of value in this video, please, give me the thumbs up. Definitely hit the subscribe button. And I sincerely hope that you have found this video helpful. And you know how we do it, right? We'll see you on the next one.